Hey guys, Pro1701 here. Today we're going to be reviewing the color version of Galaxy 4. And I'm going to start off by saying the colored version looks fantastic. I love the color choices they went with in this story to give it that kind of 60s Technicolor look. Now I know Gary Russell has mentioned the 60s Star Trek was a huge inspiration on how they wanted to do the color design for the planet, make it look very vibrant. I think they pull that off well. Not quite like they did in 60s Star Trek where they used a lot of lighting for effect, but the fact that the colors in this do pop, much like the Peter Cushing movies, which I haven't actually seen, but I have seen pictures and scenes from them, so I know how the colors really pop off the screen. I really like that choice. It works well in a story like this, especially the scenes when they're on the planet. I love the choice with the red sun and the kind of brown and reddish rocks. And the scene at the end when the lava's erupting. Looks really, really good. I don't like inside the TARDIS, the fact they made the TARDIS console look that green. I know that's what it actually looked like in person. And I know that's what it looked like in, like, Inferno. But for me, it was always supposed to be white. It was only that shade of green because it looked better on a black and white TV as white. It's always supposed to be white in my head, much like in Twice Upon a Time when it looks white. That's the color it's supposed to be in my mind. So that's the color I like it to be. So that dull green is just such an uninteresting green. I call it toilet bowl green. It just looks unimpressive. Very, very boring, that mint green. So I didn't like that, but it's a minor little nitpick. As I mentioned in my black and white review, I hate the fact they don't do the pan shot at the beginning. Because if you look at the existing 8mm footage of the opening shot inside the TARDIS, it shows a shot from the top of the TARDIS and then it pans down to show Hartnell working the controls. It's a really impressive shot for Classic Who, and they don't even attempt it in the animation. Probably would have taken too much of the budget, I get that. But it's still just kind of sad that all you see is them just working at the controls like normal. A little disappointing. The colors in the ships are alright. At least in the Draven ship, it's fine. The real ship, I don't really care for that beige or cream color and burgundy that it goes with. I don't hate it as much as some people do. I just think it looks uninteresting. I think that part looks better in black and white. Even though technically I get they're not actually in the real ship. They're in that little structure the reals have set up outside their ship. The little encampment that connects to the ship. That's why it looks very much different in the animation than it does in the original story. You can see that in the surviving episode 3, because a lot of that takes place in that little area that's not technically inside the reals ship. It's that little area they have set up right outside the ship, because the reals even mention at the end, we are returning to our ship. So they're obviously not actually in it. And you can tell it looks more like an encampment in the surviving footage with the plastic and stuff strewn up. It does look more like a makeshift camp area, because that's basically what it is. Whereas in the animation, they have that completely different design for it that makes it look more like actual part of the ship, which it isn't supposed to be. You can actually see in the animation when the real ship takes off, the little encampment just kind of falls to pieces. It just kind of, while the rest of it gets up and goes. So that's not actually the inside of the real ship. And the real ship, the animation looks better in black and white because the black and white walls look better than that cream and beige, that burgundy color. I don't hate it as much as some, and I get why they did it because they didn't want to have just black and white walls and a color animation. I get that, but it's just uninteresting. I like it's weird how the Draven women have the blue lips. That's kind of odd. I like their outfits. The kind of bluish color looks fine, and the darker blue for the leader, Maga, or whatever her name is. Looks good. Hartnell's face, I mentioned this in my black and white review. I finally realized what it was that was throwing me off. First off, it doesn't match the DVD sleeve. Like if you see Hartnell on the DVD or standard Blu-ray sleeve or on the disc art when that looks kind of like Hartnell. That doesn't look like what the animation actually looks like. Hartnell doesn't look like Hartnell. And it was something one of the other Who-tubers, Whovian Espresso, pointed out to me that it really made sense, and that it looks more like Richard Hurndall. And it does. The animation looks a lot like Richard Hurndall. It's like someone who was animating it just typed in Google search First Doctor. Richard Hurndall came up first, and they're like, okay, that's the First Doctor. And then they were 2/3 of the way through, and someone's like, well, actually, and they were like, And that's just what we got. So we have basically something that looks like Richard Hurndall talking with William Hartnell's voice. It's really weird. The animated episode 3 is fine because I did watch the surviving footage, the surviving episode when I watched the black and white version. But when I was watching the color version, I watched all 4 episodes animated. They are a bit different. I don't like when they're disarming the one Drobbin girl, and in the animation it shows Hartnell kind of punch her in the face while holding his cane, whereas in the surviving footage it's more he knocks the weapon out of her arms with it while she's fighting with Vicky, and he just kind of, down I say, madam, and he just kind of whacks her with the cane like this as she's going down. To me that makes more sense for the first Doctor, even though, yes, I know he's also the same guy who whacked he whacked a guy in the head with a shovel in Reign of Terror, which is hilarious. But I can't see him just punching a woman in the face like it does in the animation, so I much prefer how they do that in the original version of it when he just kind of hits the cane down on her arms. Makes more sense. Which version I prefer is trickier. I'd probably say the color version because, one, the colors do pop. And I do like the 16:9 better than the 4:3 in this instance. You know, I don't have a definitive pick. It really does depend on the story. I like the 16:9 since it does, with that Technicolor look, it looks like it has more of a widescreen cinematic look to it. And again, the colors pop. And also, it just flows better if I'm watching all of the animations, which is odd for me. Usually, if there's surviving episodes, I want to watch it in the black and white, because if there's surviving episodes, I want to watch the surviving episodes. Faceless Ones is like that. I can watch Faceless Ones either way, but I prefer to watch it in the black and white, because I like watching the surviving episodes more. Evil of the Daleks, I like both, but I probably prefer the black and white because, one, I do like having the surviving episode 2. It is much better than the animated version of episode 2 because Troughton's just great. And I like having surviving Troughton when I can. Although the last 2 episodes of Evil I probably like better in color. It's really weird. In this one, though, part of the problem is I find it jarring going from the animation to the surviving footage, partially because the way the reel's encampment is so drastically different in the original version and in the animation, so when you're going back you're having to adjust to that being very different. 2, for me, since when I watched the black and white version, I was also jumping back and forth between the animation and the surviving footage for that clip in episode 1, that 6-minute clip. And there's no feature that lets you just automatically incorporate that clip in there, and there really should have been. So I had to go out of the animation, watch the clip, and then go back into the animation, and that's very off-putting. I really wish there'd been an option where, watch original episode 1 with original 6, or watch animated episode 1 with original clip, and then it would do animation up to that point, and then it would, kind of go to black, and then fade in with the surviving clip, and at the end of the clip, fade back to black real quick and fade back in with the animation. And I know a lot of people wouldn't want to do it like that because it would be jarring, and I get that. That's a perfectly understandable response. And I just wish that would have been an option for those of us who would have liked to have had that option to just have it incorporated into the episode. Much like how I like on season 24, that redone clip of McCoy's regeneration at the beginning of Time in the Ronnie. You can have that updated version they did as an Easter egg in the Time in the Ronnie DVD. Where it actually shows Colin's face shifting into his at the beginning. I love how they gave you the option to watch that at the beginning of the story. I wish they had done that here, where it would cut back and forth. And then again, going from animation to the surviving episode 3 and back to animation, for some reason with this story felt very jarring. And I do think part of it is the fact the real encampment is done so drastically different. And just the fact Hartnell doesn't quite move like Hartnell. Like on a lot of the surviving footage, you can see him doing his thing like this with one hand, and he has, Hartnell has this full smile. You don't really think so, do you now? He has this big grin, whereas the animation he's not smiling half the time, he's chuckling, and when he is, the smile doesn't quite look right to me. Again, maybe they're going more for a Richard Hurndall look, which I love Richard Hurndall, but that's not what he's supposed to look like here. So I prefer, I think, just to watch it completely animated in color, because I'm not having to mentally adjust as I'm going through. There's no mental gymnastics. I can just enjoy it. So I think next time I rewatch it, it will depend on which mood I'm in. But I think if I was picking one I like better, it is probably the fully animated version. Mostly because it's not jarring just to watch it all in animation, and two, the colors really, really pop. I forgot to mention this before, but I did watch the recon of episode 1, and I have to say I really liked it. I'm not a big fan of recons, but in a 4-parter, where one episode exists anyway, a big clip of another episode exists, and then the rest of the recon for episode 1 seemed really good. I think the recon is going to be the closest you'll get to watching it the original way, closest to watching the actual story. So I do actually probably want to give the recon a whole try at some point. Not right now, I'm a little burned out on the story, because the story is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. But I did like the first episode of the recon. I did want to mention that out, that I do think if you're into recons, this is a good one to watch the recon of, I think. The story itself is alright. I mean, it's not bad. It's not great. I love the lesson. It is a very children's show lesson of not judging a book by its cover, and of course the beautiful blondes turn out to be the bad ones. I could have told you that. And then the disgusting, creepy, ugly ones turn out to be the benign, good ones. And don't get me wrong, if I'm in a situation where I got this evil, gnarly slug thing staring at me and an attractive blonde right here, I'm going to be more trustful of the evil slug thing myself just because of life experiences. But, so the episode's not a huge shock to me. I'm sitting there going, watch out, don't trust them, Steve. Stephanie's acting to me in the surviving episode 3 seems a little over the top. The one playing Maga, I don't really know her much as an actress, but I wasn't really impressed with her. It seems very theatrical. She seems very much like someone acting on a stage with their movements and the way she talks. Her asides to the camera, in the surviving footage of episode 1 when we crashed here. We learned there's a planet, and there's this other ship, and we shot at it, and it shot at it. She's looking right at the camera, and I'm sitting there going, ooh, I like the animated version better when it just shows the flashback of the battle. And then there's that part in episode 3 when she's right in front of the camera, and then we will kill them. They will die, or they will stay here, and we will get on the planet, and they will watch them die on the planet. And I'm like, and it's not as bad as, like, say, Orphan 55, when, Whitaker's just basically looking at us and talking to the camera, and it's so cringeworthy. Here I do get that impression that she's looking past the camera and just kind of thinking to herself. Not that she's even so much talking to her soldiers, but that she's thinking about it out loud. Kind of gleefully. You see her smiling. So that is good acting there. The fact I don't feel like she's just staring at the camera talking to the audience, and that she's just kind of, thinking to herself. That's actually not bad. But the fact that the director filmed that with her dead on in the camera, I'm sitting there going, nope. Kind of put me off. I actually like the way the animation handles some of that better than others. Although I do love watching her get her comeuppance at the end. I mean, she could have survived. The Reals offered to take them with them, and she said no. She had to take the ship. So the fact she ends up how she does at the end, and then you see her kind of fall back and the lava splash up. I'm kind of like, yeah, you deserve that. She got Anakin Skywalkered. That's going to happen at some point. There's going to be a story where the 14th Doctor runs into, something that looks like Darth Vader, and it's going to be like, we meet again, Doctor, at last. We once, that whole line is out of my head. I have been waiting for you, Doctor. We meet again at last. That's it. And it turns out to be her, all burned up and everything, like Darth Vader. I don't know. That would amuse me. But yeah, Galaxy 4, I think Galaxy 4 is an important release, more so for the fact that it's a Hartnell story. We're getting another Hartnell story for the first time in 8 years. It's the first Hartnell story to be completely done in animation. It's the first Hartnell story to be done in color. It's the first Hartnell story to be released on Blu-ray. I think that's more important than the fact we're getting Galaxy 4. So it's more what this release is doing for the first Doctor that's important than it is the actual story itself. Because it is very much a B-list story. It's one of the reasons why I don't mind it being the kind of the B-team animation doing it. Because the animation is not as good as Evil's. But I'm sure they didn't have the 18 months to work on Evil that BBC Studios had. And to be fair, The animation for this story, I think, is fine. It's very much improved over Fury. I think character movement is much better. Most of you guys know I'm hugely disappointed with Fury's animation. It looks very limited. The movement looks very cartoonish and South Park-like, whereas here the movement is much improved. I really liked a lot of the way they turn and stuff. And I think the animation style fits the tone of the story, because it is that kind of B sci-fi, B movie story that I think this animation fits perfectly. So I actually was very pleased with how the animation turned out, while knowing it's not as good as some of the other offerings like Macroterra and Faceless Ones and Evil of the Daleks, but it's still really good for the story. So I do enjoy the animation. I think the story is okay. And I'm very much looking forward to getting more Hartnell stuff on the shelf, and very much looking to getting my replacement steelbook, which I did get my shipping notice, so it'll be here in 2 or 3 weeks. So that's my thoughts on the color version of Galaxy 4 and some other stuff I had forgot to mention in the original view. Tell me which version of the story you like better if you have seen both, and what you think of the reconstruction if you have watched it yet. I always enjoy hearing from you guys, so let me know what you think. Other things to do: click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and are interested in what I do, there is a link to that down below. Access to my Patreon gets you different things depending on at what tier level you join. I do bloopers and outtakes on there. I do videos about behind-the-scenes stuff on my creation process. I do videos about other hobbies I have, like my figures and stuff that are on the shelf, showing those off. I also do previews of reviews, like for instance, reviews that you guys haven't gotten yet, they already have on my Patreon. I do tend to put reviews up early, like I know, I'm trying to remember which one just went up. My review for The Invasion is up already. There, which was actually a poll that my patrons voted on. That's another thing, you get access to polls and stuff to vote on videos I do. So if you want to have, any kind of part in my creative making process, check that out if you have a minute. I would certainly appreciate it. Most importantly though, thank you for watching.